Hi there, I'm Tim Gray, and in this episode of Tim Gray TV, I'm going to capture an image that I've been thinking about for quite a while. The idea came to me when I was walking through the streets of New York and I saw some clouds moving through the sky rather quickly. I had recently been capturing lots of long exposures, mostly along the coastline of Maine, for example, and I thought, why not combine the two ideas? Take a long exposure with those clouds blurred, the buildings sharp. I think it could be a great photo. The problem is, at the time I didn't have all of my camera gear with me, and I haven't had a good opportunity since then. But I'm here in Seattle now, and I have basically the same opportunity. I've got the Space Needle behind me, and I'm going to use that as my key subject, but there are some clouds moving relatively quickly through the sky, so I'll use those to essentially paint with the clouds through the sky, getting that blur effect from a long exposure. So what I've done to get started here is set my ISO to the minimum value of 100 so that I can get the longest exposure duration possible. I've also stopped my lens down all the way to f/22, which is the minimum aperture for this lens. That will give me the longest possible exposure time. Unfortunately, it's a sunny day today in Seattle with some partly cloudiness, and so with those exposure settings, I'm ending up with a shutter speed of about 1/60th of a second. That's not exactly a long exposure, and so I'm going to add a neutral density filter. In this case, a 10-stop neutral density filter, which will enable me to get exposure times of about 10 to 15 seconds. And because the clouds are moving relatively quickly, that will be enough time to get that blur effect for the clouds. I'm using a Xume adapter for my neutral density filter, so attaching it to the lens is just a matter of putting it in place because there are magnets there with those Xume adapters that will hold the filter in place for me. Very, very convenient. So I've got the shot set up, it's all framed up, I've set my focus. Now I'll just adjust my exposure settings. Instead of that 60th of a second, I'll get a shutter speed of about 15 seconds at f/22 and 100 ISO. I'm using a 2-second timer in lieu of a cable release. Either is perfectly fine. I just tend to use a 2-second timer, generally speaking, rather than breaking out the cable release. I'll wait for the clouds to be in a good position, and then I can just trigger that exposure, that 15-second exposure, where the Space Needle will be rendered nice and sharp because my camera is stable on a tripod, and the clouds will be just painted across the sky thanks to that long exposure.